Deploying applications to the cloud. So we have a couple ways we can deploy applications to the cloud, one of which is from Anypoint Studio. Deploying applications to the cloud. There are a couple ways that we can deploy our applications to Cloud Hub. One is from Anypoint Studio. We could export the MMUULLEE project directly to Anypoint Platform using Anypoint Platform credentials. We could also do this from Anypoint using the Runtime Manager. In Anypoint Studio, we could create a deployable archive, effectively a zip package. In the Runtime Manager, we can add an application and then upload a MMUULLEE deployable archive. In the Runtime Manager, under the Properties tab, we can select a zip to upload in the top application file area. In the bottom, under the Properties tab itself, we can see the ability to add or change environment variables and add new property values to override those set in .properties. Now, inside of the Runtime tab itself, we can set not only the runtime version that we'd like to run on, but also the size of our worker from a vertical scaling aspect, and then the quantity of workers on the right from a horizontal scaling aspect. Let's take a moment to define what a Cloud Hub worker is. A worker is a dedicated instance of MMUULLEE that runs an application. Each worker in Cloud Hub runs in a separate server from every other application. It is deployed and monitored independently, runs in a specific worker cloud in a region of the world. Workers can have different memory capacity and processing power. This is where your vertical scalability comes into play. Applications can also be scaled horizontally by adding more instances, and these can all feed in from that initial load balancer where requests are coming into. Now let's take a look at deploying our own application to the cloud. In Walkthrough 4.2, we'll deploy an application from Anypoint Studio to the cloud, run the application on its new hosted domain, and make calls to the web service. We'll also update the API implementation deployed to the cloud. Let's get started. Back inside of Anypoint Studio, let's right-click on APDev American-WS. In our menu, we'll go down to Anypoint Platform and choose Deploy to Cloud. After choosing to deploy to cloud, if your token has expired like mine, you may have to log in again, so feel free to take a moment to do so. If you did need to log in again and you hit sign in, you should see the following dialog pop up. And if you were already logged in, this may have popped up automatically. From within the deploying application menu, we're going to have to specify the domain. This is the address in which we'll be able to access our app on port 80. In this case, we can keep the APDev American-WS, but we need to make sure it's unique. So in this case, I'm going to go to the very end and put in a unique specifier. You can put in your last name or something that will be unique to you. Now that we've got our name in place, let's go ahead and make sure that our worker sizing is correct. I'm going to close out of these notifications on the right, and inside of the runtime size, we're going to make sure it's on 3.8.0 and that our worker size is 0.1 vCore. We won't need a lot of power for this initial deployment. Let's then go to the Properties tab inside of our settings, and we want to make sure that env equals dev is set. We can see since it was part of the MMUULLEE-app.properties that it's automatically been inserted inside of the Properties menu. Now we should be set up to deploy, so let's give it a shot. Let's click Deploy Application. Now, as the application is deploying, let's open in a browser to watch this application deploy from Runtime Manager. You may need to log in, so go ahead and log in if need be. And once logged in, you should see your application. Now, mine was a little bit too quick and it's already started. If you got here quicker than I did, you might actually see the deployment in progress with a spinning wheel here. Now, I'm going to go inside of the application and click Manage Application. We can see all the different settings that have propagated within. If we go to logs inside of Cloud Hub, we can also see an aggregate of all the logs that have printed out. Most importantly to us, we can see that our application has started successfully. Now let's see if we can test this application. If we go to our dashboard inside of Runtime Manager, we can see that not only does it give us statistics about CPU and memory and how many MMUULLEE messages have moved through, but also it gives us the domain URL. Let's go ahead and copy this domain URL, and let's paste this inside of our browser. If we paste this inside of our browser, we can make a specific call, in this case to API/flights. And by hitting enter, we should see a JSON response come back just as we did inside of Studio when we were testing in Postman. So now we've got an array of JSON data. Now let's test the same thing out in Postman. So we'll copy this URL, open up Postman on our computer, try sending a request to the same address in Postman, and hit send. And great, once we get a JSON response back, we're officially going out to the web inside of a worker that's hosted in Cloud Hub to get this flight data back inside of our client. Now, let's see if we can update this application inside of Cloud Hub. We'll head back to the Runtime Manager, and from the Runtime Manager, let's go to Settings. Inside of Settings, we can click Choose File, and now we're going to head to our student files. From within your student files, there's a resources directory. Go ahead and open up resources and find the apdev-american-ws.zip. Once you've got this selected, you can hit open. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to click Apply Changes to update the implementation. Once the upload has completed successfully, we can go over to the logs inside, and we can see that it's deploying the application to one worker. And we can also see the previous deployment as well. Now, how Cloud Hub is going to work is it's going to keep our old application alive until the new application gets set up successfully and pass its health check. That way we don't experience any downtime from updating this application. So let's wait for a moment to see the pending circle turn into a green circle representing that the application has started. Now that our application is started, let's make some sample requests. Once again, we'll return to Postman, and this updated application just has a little bit more functionality baked into it. As an example, if we go inside of here and we ask for flights, specifically flights to SFO, we can put a question mark in as a query parameter and ask for code SFO. And with code SFO in place, if we hit send, our response that comes back gives us results that are only SFO flight results. Each destination is SFO, and of course, if we modify this with something like CLE, we'll then only get results to Cleveland inside of our results set. We'll see how to do this type of work from an implementation perspective later on in the full developer course. Now that we have this new implementation in place, let's go ahead and grab the updated RAML file and update our platform with it. To do so, we're going to go back to our student files. And inside of our student files, we're going to go to the resources folder, and inside of resources, you'll find american.raml. So I'd like you to open up American RAML in a text editor to view its contents. And once opened up in a text editor, go ahead and copy the entire RAML file to your clipboard. Now let's head back to Anypoint Platform. Inside of Anypoint Platform, let's go back to the API Manager from the navigation in the left. We'll then open our American Flights API version 1.0. And from here, in the API definition section, let's click Edit in API Designer. We'll start off by ensuring the mocking service is not enabled, so we'll turn that off. And then we'll select all the text that pre-exists inside of here and delete it. We're now going to paste in the newly copied RAML file that has a couple other features inside of it, as you can see showing in the console on the right. And let's go ahead and save these new changes. These will be especially helpful in the proxy we're going to generate in a moment. So for now, keep this window open and make sure you have your newest RAML file saved.